Hi, my name is Tom Llewellyn, and I have a proposition for you, our youth, that's not going to help me at all, but may give you a path to a much better success for your future. So here's a question. Is money in politics killing our democracy? And I'd say, yeah, it is. It's especially the big money, right? But is big money and politics making even a bigger problem for our democracy? And I would say the answer to that is very much yes. So we have two problems. And when you mix them together, they're awful. You have big money, especially big money, and two political monopolies that have no competition of ideas or anything. So how big is the big money? Well, we saw in the last speech, 77% of donations are big donations, and they come from less than 1% of the people, which means the other 99 of us, are at a disadvantage. These guys are writing checks and we're casting ballots, but they're writing laws and we're on the sidelines. It's kind of like, doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right at all. More important, just 100 people gave $1.3 billion. They're not doing it because they like Henry or Fred or Julie or whoever. They're buying influence. And worse, so you take a political party, that's one thing, but if it's a political monopoly, it's quite another thing. And that's what these two parties are. They're a monopoly that own all the power in politics. There's a couple other parties, they're kind of alt, Republicans or Democrats. They can't raise a lot of money because the black hole of money on the big parties just suck it all away from them, right? But to get on a ballot, even if you wanted to, 33,000 signatures, that's a ton of signatures all around the state just to get on the ballot. And if you don't get enough votes for whatever, you got to do it again. It's impossible to get on and stay on. So no competition. So is the two-party system broken? Well, you might think, well, yeah, it is. Doesn't sound right. But look, the two-party system is fine. The two parties are broken. So what can you, the citizen, the youthful, energetic citizen, do to fix our democracy? Well, I got a couple of pieces of sage advice as a young man. One was from a math professor whose English was kind of rough. And one of the questions on the test made no sense. I go up and I go, could you clarify? And he looks at me and he gives me the best advice for anybody on anything in the world. Mr. Llewellyn, if you don't know what to do, do something. Very good advice. The second one was Ron Kist. My first job out of college selling PCs, right? We have a bunch of young guys like me saying, well, price is everything, because none of us have any money, so price is a big deal. Ron Kist, who's our marketing manager, who looks like Thor, right? He's a big person, the hair, it's reddish blonde, he drives a 72 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, red, so you can imagine him in the car, the hair's blowing, so we're in a meeting and he finally just goes, no, you guys are all wrong. So figure out what everybody else is doing and don't do that. So if you're going to be another party, you can't go after big money. You can't do politics the way they do politics. You certainly can't do legislation and policy the way they do it because they're not doing anything for you and me, right? It's crazy. So what do you do? How do you do this? So there's an old way to government, which is what they're doing, which is politics before performance based on big donors that like politics and want to get their way, right? Well, that's not working. So the other way would be to do, like Mr. Kist and Dr. Humara said, you have to do something. You have to do something and do something new, right? Do something different. So performance before politics becomes really important. If the guidance is we're going to do something, but if we spend $1, we're not going to get 50 cents on it. We're going to get $1.20. That's a big deal. If you can measure success, it's a big deal. Second, only use small donors. Why go after the big guys? There's actually good math, and I'll show you that in a minute, that would say, why haven't we been doing this all along? And the third one is, well, you don't need a new party. Independents rule, right? There's more independents in my congressional district than there is Democrats. And if you go around the nation, that kind of fuels everywhere. It's their first, second, or third place, but they're always high on the list, especially over libertarians and Greens. They're way up there. Let's organize, right? So why do small donors beat big donors? Well, if you looked in this election, there's about I'm just going to do one half of the party. So there's about 200,000 registered voters, potential givers, right, for one candidate. He raised about $18.3 million. You'll assume maybe less than 2,000 of those people are donors, and the big donors might accumulate about $13.3 million. Can you get to those numbers? I mean, we're little people. We don't have any money. But if you look at small donors like a Netflix subscription, and maybe not a continuous one, if you just did $10 a month for 10 months, and we'll use those because they're easy to multiply, right? It's $100 during a campaign, right? Well, if you look at how many people independents are, there's 176,000. There's another 176,000 people aren't even registered. If you only got 50,000, you'd get 5 million. If you did a third of them, you're way up to that, over that 13 million. If you organize small donors, people that actually should have some skin in the game, but no, they don't, into a way to produce a government that gives you back success versus just taking your money, it's kind of a big deal. So is there a way to do performance? So we don't do performance. Performance in government is measured by spending. If something isn't working, you always just ask for more money because more money fixes everything. Of course, that's nuts, right? But if you did this, if every single law, policy, or program had a thesis that said, we're going to do this and it will improve X, Y, or Z, X, Y, or 10, 50, 100%, whatever. If you have something measurable, you create a grading scale, you implement at least a test program, you measure the success or failure, and you go from there. But most importantly, you publish it so we can see it. So they are accountable to what we can see, not, all the state is hidden. You would have no idea whether things are working or not. And just to give an example, so a lot of people go, we don't spend enough money on education. Maybe yes, maybe no. Since 1961, per capita spending on average for students has increased 354%, while the proficiency of students has gone down from 30 to 29, 28, inner cities below 15 now. It's insane. How do you spend 354% more money and get nothing in return? We're doing something wrong. We should have figured that out a long time ago and tried something different, but we don't, right? Politics before performance, right? So, if you just looked at at least the top 3 or 4 or 5 programs that cost way over 50% of the budget, you could potentially cut spending by a third. You would have no deficit. You could start paying down the deficit. The amount of money in your checks could go up because you could afford a tax cut, right? Which would actually not produce less revenue, but more. It's an odd thing in economics, but it's true. And if you just did this regularly and created a culture out of it, what do you get? You get great governance that people go, I trust those guys, which we don't right now. So it's up to you. There's a book called The 4 Seasons of History, and in it says every 25 years we go through these cycles. It starts good, kind of flattens out, maybe grows a little, and it really does flatten out, and then it gets decay, and then it comes back to that next generation, you. And you are the guys that are supposed to fix this. So I'm going to encourage you. There's a QR code. You want to share this video with your friends? Please do. Thanks.